Well, this is Infosec Decoded number 88 with minor extractable value. But we're starting with Liz, who has a robot.
Well,
Reboot
sort
with
of.
a robot.
So, yes, my my story is about it's actually a modern revamp of a toy that I had as a kid, which was this Fisher Price telephone on wheels. It's sort of this classic that's been around forever, but Fisher Price has been doing a lot of sort of retro reprises of these classic toys. And one of them is this phone. And thing is, it's a little rotary phone on wheels with a handset.
And a cute little face like Thomas the Train.
Yeah, when I was a kid, the one I had, if you pulled it along on the wheels, the eyes would like wiggle back and forth, but this doesn't look as complex. It looks like they might be stickers. But that's not the only thing that's changed. So it's still got a rotary dial, which I think is hilarious because no one today is going to encounter a rotary phone or even know what that is. But they've still got it. They did not bump it up to touch tone for this iteration.
So Liz, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So what exactly is a rotary phone?
Exactly. What is a rotary phone? That reminds me of the time I asked my high school students, a question came up regarding a fax machine. And I asked the class how many students knew what a fax machine was. And one kid raised his hand because he said his mom had one at home. So this phone, one of the changes is that it now includes Bluetooth, and which connects to a real phone. So kids can for some reason someone thought this was a great idea to make this this toy phone basically work as a Bluetooth controller for their parents' smartphone. So
You can start making spam calls.
Yes, and answering them, because these researchers found, of course, like most Bluetooth devices, this thing's rife with vulnerabilities. And one of the ones that really seemed incredible to me was that if this thing's connected to smartphone and the handset is left off of the toy, it'll automatically answer any calls connected to the phone. So of course this is not a great idea, but it has sold out, so it is a popular toy because of course nostalgia is powerful and everybody wants to get their kids the toy they had when they were children. So these are quite popular.
It sounds almost as great as those smart televisions from or smart refrigerators from a few years ago, where kids could go on the iPad and order like more chocolate milk.
Yes, exactly. So I'm sure that plenty of folks will be gleefully connecting this thing to their smartphone on Christmas when their kids open their toys. So just a word to the wise, maybe don't connect this thing and let them play with it as it was intended to be, which is a toy that does not connect to any real telecommunications networks.
I bought an electric toothbrush and they wanted to give me the smart version that connected to an app on my phone. And I said, I'll get the dumb version. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So Kaitlyn has discovered that Twitter's algorithm amplifies conservatives.
Yeah, so for a while now, conservatives, or I guess it's been a conservative talking point, that social media is or has a liberal bias. And this harkens back to an older conservative talking point, which is that the news media in general is left-leaning and liberal and against them. And so a little background, back when I was in college, I was studying journalism for a while, and I was the news editor. So I have some some experience, doing news. And and I'm also kind of very interested in like what other people are saying, like even if they're not my beliefs, like I still want to know what other other mindsets think about issues. And so it always struck me as weird because I would watch things like CNN, I'd watch mainstream news like ABC, NBC, I'd read the New York Times or Bloomberg and the Washington Post and all the stuff, and none of it really came across as particularly biased. I mean, obviously, if you looked really hard, you could find some stuff, but nothing really like we're liberal stuff. And if anything, they're a little. Most mainstream news media are a little conservative insofar as they very much are focused on grabbing attention through headlines and making money through their corporate structure and upholding their corporate structure. And that's not really like a explicit bias, it's just something that if you're running a news empire, it just sort of comes up, right? It's not like it's not like Fox News or like MSNBC where they're setting out specifically to like back a political candidate. It's a little bit more insidious. And so I always thought it was really funny, but it was just one of those talking points, and everyone just seemed to pick it up and be like, oh yeah, the media is this left-winging crazy stuff, and Fox News is the only fair and balanced thing. I'm just like, no, that just doesn't seem right. I mean, it's not what I'm saying. And so lately, of course, conservatives have been going after social media, especially after what happened with President What's-His-Face getting banned on social media.
Yeah.
And so this article, it's in Salon by Matthew Raza, and it talks about a study that was done, and it looked at what social media tends to amplify, and what it tends to bias towards. And it really does tend to bias towards conservative talking points. Now, every feed is unique. And I don't think that this, once again, this is necessarily a Twitter is on the side of the Republicans or anything like that. If anything, this is conservatives just are very good at saying inflammatory things and getting attention. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, but it does go on to show that, a lot of these claims of media bias and stuff is very much not representative of reality. So,
well, I think everything is biased, and it always has been, but it's not as simple as like left or right. And I think especially now there's a huge problem now that the Republican Party has moved completely into madness. So their so-called truth is the election was stolen. Their Democrats are putting poison in the vaccine and stuff like that. So if you make any attempt to be remotely responsible, you're excluding what is now mainstream Republican thought because it's all false. So I can see why they feel abused, and they have to make a special news source to teach the bizarre stuff that they think is true now.
Yeah, but what's so interesting is that, mainstream conservative ideas, yeah, I mean, certainly the extreme right-wing stuff is, a lot of it is, I'm going to be diplomatic and say not necessarily based in scientific fact.
Yeah, but that's not extreme anymore. That used to be extreme. That is now the mainstream. Like 80% of Republicans believe the election was stolen and stuff like that. So now that I can see why they feel like everything's left-leaning. Right.
But let's step out of
fantasy world.
Right. Let's step out of sort of this American-centric view of politics for a second and go towards a more global view. One where we see things like socialism being a very popular platform. So in a lot of like European countries, socialism, and even parts of communism are widely talked about, very normalized. It's almost a center politic, really. It's not even like left-leaning to say, oh, I'm a socialist. It's sort of like, okay.
This is what I've heard from Europeans for a long time. From their point of view, America is a one-party system with two right wings. Right.
And so if you are on social media and you do say something that's sort of globally neutral, like pro-socialist stuff, you do get it like a lot of backlash in America because it is seen as extreme to have these anything that's left of center, even if it's center left. And and so there is that bias, but I don't see the people on the left really complaining about that bias. I mean, they really focus on things. I've seen them really rail against Fox News and the obvious stuff like that. That really goes against them. But I mean, if you're on the left in the United States, then even things like Bloomberg is working against you. But people on the left are not complaining about Bloomberg or the Washington, or not the Washington. The Wall Street Journal, stuff like that. And it's really a very much a right-wing mentality to sort of feel like even though it's not necessarily the case, you sort of feel like the whole world is out to be biased against you. So I don't know.
Yeah, the grievance culture.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And then Alan's got long COVID.
Yes, there's been so much talk lately about emanating from the White House and the CDC that if you get your booster shot, then you can just carry on as if it's no big deal. You can return to normal and live your life as if nothing's going on. And it just seems like it's a good time to review a preprint study that was released by the VA, the U.S. Veterans Affairs Administration, in which they looked at tens of thousands of veterans who had been infected or not been infected with COVID and looked at their health outcomes. So in this large study that examined health records in the VA database, they looked at about 16,000 survivors of breakthrough infections. That is, veterans who had been fully vaccinated and then had a breakthrough COVID infection. They also looked at 48,000, a little over 48,000 unvaccinated COVID-19 survivors. And then about 3.5 million uninfected veterans who never contracted COVID. And what they found was indeed very disturbing. Although they found that those who were vaccinated and did get COVID had better health outcomes than those who were not vaccinated and then caught COVID. Those who were vaccinated and caught COVID still had significantly worse health outcomes than those who were never infected in the first place. And just how much worse? Well, those with breakthrough infections had a 53% higher risk of death and a 59% higher risk of having at least one new medical condition, especially conditions affecting the lungs and other main organs. So that does not exactly sound like a trivial risk. Not a trivial risk at all.
Yeah. And of course, this gives fuel to the frequent right-wing statement that, well, the vaccines don't work anyway. And, well, they don't work as well as you might hope, actually.
Yeah, and there's now, Israel has just authorized the dispensing of fourth doses for people considered at greater risk.
Like me, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm considering it.
And there's also talk, and I'm going to have to research this further, but there's Twitter talk about antibody levels falling really fast within just a matter of weeks.
Yep.
After the third dose. So even if you were boosted in October, say, your level of protection is extremely low. It's like almost back down to the 2-dose antibody protective level.
Yep, that's kind of what I figured. Yeah. So we're not out of this thing yet, not at all.
Far from it, unfortunately, really far from it.
And this Omicron thing is spreading everywhere, to where a lot of people are saying, oh, just forget it, you're going to get it no matter what you do.
Yeah, and this attitude of it's inevitable, this kind of fatalism about it, is probably not very helpful. I mean, yes, it's true that a lot of people are going to get it, and judging from the infection numbers out, so over 250,000 Americans were reported to be testing positive yesterday. But yeah, people should still try their best to avoid this by wearing an N95 respirator and by not congregating.
Yeah, I just talked to a friend last night who, well, she and her sister are triple vaccinated. They've had their, they've had their boosters and everything, and they both got it. And it's just, it seems never ending. I'm really curious about the Novavax because, that targets the spike of the protein, but we're not able to get it here yet. And I know it's available in Europe. That seems to be having a fairly high degree of success, and I'm kind of hoping we get that here too soon.
A vaccine that's better against Omicron?
Yeah, because it targets the spike on the protein, which means it's effective against all. It's more effective against all the variants.
I
So
thought,
far.
okay, yeah, there's also a universal one the military supposedly has. Yeah, a lot of good things supposedly coming.
I think it may be the same one,
Yeah,
possibly.
I thought the point was it didn't target the spike because the ones we use now target the spike, and that's what keeps mutating. But anyway, I know there is supposed to be one that's like universal that might actually really be better.
Yeah, this is the one, but we can't get it as
Yeah.
regular people, but they, supposedly it's supposed to be approved any minute, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
that would be nice. All right, and I've got lots of cryptocurrency. I've been listening to more cryptocurrency podcasts and getting very interested. So one thing I didn't realize, one of the arguments I used to make against cryptocurrency is that they don't have government control and the Fed, but they do. They have open source equivalents. Ethereum had this improvement proposal that just went live where they are going to burn Ethereum in order to make it deflationary, just the way the Fed would adjust the money supply. And they also revealed something else. What they're doing is they're taking the mining fees that people get and they're just burning them by sending them to a wallet that can't be used to lower the money supply, just the way where you would do it to prevent inflation. They're saying we should be lowering the money supply in America, and our Fed will be doing the same thing. The problem is this means miners have trouble making money. So miners have begun building in algorithms to do miner extractable value, which is a problem I never thought of. The miner can choose the order of transactions. So when you buy something, they can put another transaction of their own in there first, buying it, pushing the price up. So they can manipulate the market and make money just the way automated traders do by making fast connections and buying things before you get them. And the way people like Robinhood do, and I think also Coinbase, where when you buy something, they don't process your thing right away. They go ahead and change the price before you buy it to have concealed fees. So this is called miner extractable value, and they've been programming it into the mining algorithms. And right now they're just accepting it and saying, this seems to be the nature of the system. There's going to be a hidden fee on transactions in there, and they don't quite know how to prevent it. So right now it is a known problem of the system, but the stock market has the same problem. And Binance, the alternative layer 2 chain, one of them, to compete with Ethereum, has now also implemented a new auto burn procedure to burn tokens to make the money supply go down to prevent inflation. So anyway, I was very interested. All my objections about this unregulated cryptocurrency marketplace are being addressed by the modern improvements in them. That's why I'm a lot less against it than I used to be. It does seem to be approaching the professionalism of the real money supply, which has a lot of real problems too. Anyway, and then Elizabeth has got Apple wants to continue using it for forced labor, apparently.
Yeah, so I thought this was kind of interesting, and it's actually a pretty cool move on the part of the SEC, but essentially Apple shareholders said, hey, we're not really sure how we feel about you using this corporate slavery model. We're cramming people into these dormitories where they need to use suicide nets. we found out you're using forced labor from concentration camps and like abusing student work programs and stuff like that. Maybe we should kind of look into this and source our labor a little more ethically. And Apple really tried to put a stop to this. They really didn't want to talk about it. They would prefer to not have to answer to shareholders about this sort of thing. But the SEC said, you know what? Too bad, we're not going to grant you this injunction. You're going to have to answer these questions to your shareholders. So this is kind of remarkable, really, for several reasons, but it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
That's a good idea. You know, they could, like dolphin safe tuna, you could buy products that were like not produced by slaves and put that on the box.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that definitely would appeal to me as a consumer.
Yeah. All right. And Kaitlyn's got pro-China misinformation groups.
Yes, so you're going to find that all my stories have a social media theme today. The Straits Times has an article written by a reporter.
From the New York Times, apparently.
Yes, a reporter talking about how China. I can't. Sorry, I wish I could. I wish I could give someone credit for this, but yeah, it's just from the New York Times, talking about how China is still on social media, unsurprisingly, pushing out a lot of, using it for their propaganda purposes. So China has a very authoritarian style government, which is really oddly working out kind of, honestly, kind of iffy for the Chinese. Like, it's not as bad as you would think. Like, a bunch of Chinese people I've talked to are like, yeah, whatever. It's like it is what
popular in Russia.
Yeah. So you would think all these authoritarian regimes would just, go really quickly.
Why would you think that? I mean, hereditary monarchies are the natural state of the human animal, as far as I can tell.
I guess. Anyway, so I mean, there are a lot of issues with that when you have an authoritarian regimes, and one of the issues with authoritarian regimes, of course, is media control. And China wants to control social media, and as a result, on Facebook and Twitter and all our social media feeds that we have here, even in the United States, we are being presented a lot of Chinese propaganda, and this is not just a bunch of people, a bunch of hobbyists going off and creating a bunch of fake accounts, like that one politician who is like, as a Black man, I feel that the Republicans are really on my side. I forget who that was. That's hilarious. But these are professional, propaganda machines going out and, trying to, hide human rights abuses, create fake news, change the narrative, and of course, just make China look good and its leaders look good. So it's just something to look out for. It's still a problem, and it's still widespread with thousands of fake accounts.
Yeah. All right. And Alan's got the universal vaccine. Good.
Yeah, speaking of, it's not all doom and gloom. The U.S. Army, the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research has announced the results of the phase 1 human trials of their new coronavirus vaccine.
Phase 1 is very early, right? That's
very early.
Safety, not even effectiveness.
That's right. They only recently finished the animal studies, and then they started in on the phase 1 of the human trials. A very low number of participants, something like 44 people participated in this study. So it's
does that mean it's will be years before it's available, or what?
Yeah, well, I don't know what their development schedule and testing schedule is going to be like, but I mean, after all, we got the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines extremely quickly, within a year's time. But
Phase 2 and phase 3 are pretty burdensome though.
Yes, yes. And so I would expect we'll have to wait a while for this one. But at least it sounds cool because this COVID-19 vaccine uses the spike ferritin nanoparticle, which is all but guaranteed to elicit strong responses from the 5G implant crowd.
Oh,
But the thing that's so great about this vaccine is that apparently it uses 24 faces of a soccer ball shaped protein. And
like a buckyball, right?
Pardon?
Like a buckyball.
Like a buckyball, right. And these different buckyball faces present different opportunities for spikes of different coronavirus strains that can attach to this protein. And so that gives the immune system, the human immune system, more things to identify as problematic. I don't really understand how this all works. I'm no immunologist, but it sounds interesting. And well, we're probably going to need a universal coronavirus vaccine at the rate things are going. So let's hope this comes through.
Well, it also sounds like a pretty new and strange nanoparticle they're injecting into you. They're probably right to go through all the phases of testing.
Yes, this is
this
true.
One might actually have some unintended consequences.
This is true. This is true. Maybe they should be very thorough in their tests. But apparently, the Walter Reed Institute is really good. They have some of the very best facilities in the world and some of the best scientists. So.
And a lot of political corruption. I mean, those were the guys that had the doctor that certified that Trump would live to 200 and was healthier than anybody else and all that stuff.
Oh, that's right. I forgot all about that. Yeah.
Well, they're too close to the president, so they get political pressure.
Yeah. Well, hopefully these scientists are competent and apolitical in their work.
We'll see. I remember when Biden announced that everybody could get the vaccine after 6 months, and then they said, here he goes, just like Trump, making medical pronouncements before the medical people have made up their mind. I said, well, yeah, they were kind of right about that.
Well, he definitely was right about that.
Yep. Anyway,
I was going to say, just remember, people, all these vaccines do not work, so you should absolutely take ivermectin instead.
Oh, there. You're still, the amazing thing, Kaitlyn's been more and more incendiary about this disinformation every time to make the point that this is what gets on. YouTube doesn't mind blatantly false statements. They only mind Alan giving like penetrating, careful analysis of scientific research. So if one of you gets us banned, it'll be Alan.
Right.
This is what Alan did before that they got us banned, was talk about a serious medical research. And every time Kaitlyn says something outrageous like that, they don't care. Anyway,
just to be clear, no, everyone should have the vaccine, and ivermectin does not cure COVID.
My sister told me that there is actually a bunch of studies that show that ivermectin prevents COVID, and from other nations. And they're actually, the conclusion so far is that in other nations, not America, a bunch of people actually are infected with parasitic worms, and it makes them more susceptible to COVID. So taking the ivermectin actually helps them. That's why she said it's not complete nonsense. There are some studies showing ivermectin has some effect on preventing COVID. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
But not for the reasons that Americans think it works.
Well, yeah, not in America, which is why they say, when they have like Africa says Omicron is mild, they say, don't assume that because it's mild in Africa, it will be mild in America. There are differences. Anyway, so
clearly, and the answer is that America needs more parasites.
If we had more parasites, then we'd probably be more in line with Republican values. I think that makes total sense. Anyway, so the Metaverse is up. There are two primary contenders for the Metaverse. One is called Decentraland. That was the first one. And one of the founders of Decentraland left and made the Sandbox, which is the newer, more advanced version of it. And they are selling Metaverse land, and they are selling a lot of it, 106 million worth of it earlier this month. People have made a duplicate of the world, and they are selling land in the world. And several large companies have already bought like offices in this. So you may remember this all happening 20 years ago in Second Life, but it's totally coming. The Metaverse, just like Zuckerberg said, and it's an Ethereum blockchain. At least the first one is. I think the second one might not be on Ethereum, and they're all NFTs, and people are buying the land and they're buying avatars. And so it's really happening. And the one starting in 3 days is Sin City, where you can buy, it's the Grand Theft Auto world, and you can buy land there. And the land there you get in like 10 yard by 10 yard plots in the city. And they have districts in the city with all sorts of vile things happening where you can put up things. So it's happening. Real estate investment in the metaverse, straight out of Snow Crash, is really happening. Anyway, I have not yet heard about Microsoft's metaverse joining this group, and I'm kind of thinking Microsoft's metaverse will probably not interoperate with Sin City, just at a guess. But there already are plans to make them all interoperate. So when you buy like a fancy car or clothing in the metaverse, you can drive it into the other metaverse. So it's all happening.
This all sounds so stupid.
Well, see, there you go, being stuck in the mud. You know, Snow Crash explained it all. I think this, I don't know.
I get the idea if they're trying to create like if a bunch of companies want to create a bunch of VR worlds, and then you want to have like a centralized platform to make it easy for them to do it and like exchange information, exchange avatars, that's a good business model. But this whole thing, like we're all going to spend all our time in VR and like drive around fake.
They do. I mean, what the last Facebook developer conference I went to, like they had this whole plan where, you know, every business meeting is going to involve everyone wearing an Oculus. And it's like, look, I've had enough of 2D Zoom. Okay. I really don't need VR Zoom meetings for work.
I agree with you entirely about the Oculus. Sticking a cardboard box on your head is never going to be popular, but all of us spend our whole life in a virtual world on the 2D screens right now. So I think this is coming.
I don't think so. And the thing is, I love VR. In fact, I have over here, pull up my $1,000 headset over here. I mean, I'm not an anti VR person. I love VR. I think VR is great. And so when I say that this is stupid, I mean, I'm really I'm not a Luddite by any stretch of the imagination.
No. Well, I'm not, but I agree that I think it's all a matter of the devices, but I think this is coming. I think it's just in its early stages now.
It would be a fun game. Okay. Like if you want to make a game where like that Second Life, but modernized with like VR, that'd be a really fun game. But to model your entire business after it and like to have this like fake, virtual reality stuff.
Virtual reality stuff kind of makes sense to me. It's funny you said that because I was just going to say that's one of the few applications. Like there's a couple applications where it really makes sense to me. One is the virtual reality stuff. The other is like medical training, especially for people who are in remote areas. There are a few applications that really make sense, but there are some applications that just really make no sense to me whatsoever.
Now, if you're talking about, are you talking about virtual reality, like the plot to land, the virtual land, or because I used VR to scope out my apartment during COVID. And that worked. That was awesome.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about virtual realty, I'm talking about buying the Second Life land.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, sorry.
No, and I think it makes total sense. I must have taken the blue pill, but I'm seeing this in people. It's like programless computing, codeless computing. People would like the world when they turn on their internet and go there to just be where you walk down the street, go into a shop and buy something, go into this place and meet your friends. I think it's the logical extension. So
let me tell you why real estate in VR is a dumb idea. Mm-hmm. So there in VR, you can teleport.
Yeah.
And you have infinite amounts of space.
Yeah.
So where your building is almost inconsequential as long as it's near your friends. Like if you want to like do something, like build a structure together or something, it's like Minecraft. It's Minecraft.
It is, but that doesn't mean it's meaningless. There will be places that are high traffic and desirable where your customers will go, where you will go to meet your friends. And then there are deserts where nobody is, where you can get stuff for cheap and be alone there.
But that's thinking in terms of like someone who's never spent a lot of time in VR. Like there's no such thing as a high traffic area when you have infinite landmass.
Oh, I think there will be, but this is the question. We're going to live through this. I think it's a whole new world, and there will of course be a lot of failures, but there will be successes.
It is going to be Second Life all over again. That's what it's sounding like they want. They just want Second Life, and it's just
Second Life was an early prototype that pretty much failed, just like much of the internet failed at first. I don't know. I think this is the beginning of a brave new world, a glorious new world. Anyway, and a lot of people. By the way, you can get rich speculating in it, even if it's all bullshit. There's always that. But anyway. All right. Well, anyway, so I'm trying to figure out where we are. Right. Metaverse. I think we might be up to Liz with cannabis.
Yeah, so this is a pretty interesting story, but one thing that bothered me about it is that I was unable to find a publication of the actual research study behind it, but it may be out there. I just haven't seen it, so wanted to put that disclaimer out there.
I like the company name.
Yeah, so there's a company called Cannabotech. It's an Israeli company that has been doing research on cannabis extracts as well as mushroom extracts, and using those in conjunction with chemotherapy. And according to this article, by combining those with your standard chemotherapy treatment, it really improved the effectiveness of killing the cancer cells by up to a factor of 6. So I mean that's pretty interesting. By using it in conjunction, it went from killing the chemotherapy alone killing 10% of the cancerous cells to the combination killing 60% or up to 60%. So that's pretty interesting. If so, now, I always kind of take these things with a grain of salt when I don't have any kind of information on like sample size, was this a peer-reviewed study? Now it was conducted under supervision of FDA's institutional review board, which is good. But other than that, it always seems sketchy to me when they just report the breakthrough without any of the other data available. And I was not able to find this in any peer-reviewed journals, though that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or it hasn't been published. That stuff can often be difficult to access for the normals online. So it may in fact exist. This was a article that was published in the Jerusalem Post and several other outlets that I found, but it is interesting. I have read some other stuff too about some other research that's been taking place with regard to cannabinoids and also fungal extracts like in this product, and both with and without adjunctive therapies. And it is pretty interesting. I mean, we have really kind of shot ourselves in the foot as a society by failing to research these things over the past 100 years because of political reasons. So it's good to see that starting to turn around a little bit, because I think there are a lot of stones we have left unturned in the botanical world as far as effective medical treatment. So
I think I see a real theme here. You take a lot of pot, you inject yourself with buckyballs, you take ivermectin, and then you blast off into the metaverse. We've got a whole brave new life ahead of us here.
Yeah.
All right. And then Kaitlyn's got debt collectors who
Debt
can hunt you
collectors.
down in the metaverse.
Yes, debt collectors. So good news, everyone. The Insider has an article written by Isabel Asher Hamilton talking about how debt collectors can now DM you on social media, huzzah! Including on the metaverse and in Minecraft, one might think. So there you go. You're safe from you're safe nowhere now from debt collectors if you owe debt. And actually, I saw someone on Twitter today who got issued a debt into debt collection because she owed 1 pence. She owed 1 pence. So basically 1 cent.
Somebody chases you for 1 pence?
Apparently, she got into debt collection because of 1 pence.
You know, this is what the old tax rebels used to do. They would underpay their tax by $1. So the government would spend like time and money harassing you to pay the $1. Anyway.
Yep. So, I mean, those dollars add up. So, anyway, so yes, the article says that they can DM you. Now, they cannot post anything publicly. Like they can't post a thing on Twitter saying, hey, Sam Bowne, you owe us 13 cents. They can't do that, but they can DM you and they can go online and they can start harassing you on websites. So
Yeah.
have fun, everyone, in the metaverse.
Yeah, that's great. All right. And so Alan says Code Academy has been sold.
Yeah, Code Academy, which is one of the best known teach yourself how to code online with our simple to use tools, has just sold to Skillsoft for $525 million in a combination of stock and cash. Usual business acquisition bromides apply, of course. But it's an interesting acquisition, first of all, for just the amount of money, $500 million for
That valuation is nuts.
Is
It
there
is
really that much
absolutely
money in it?
nuts.
How do you make money off this stuff?
Well, they do have a bunch of customers, and apparently Code Academy has more recently pivoted to enterprise customers. That's how they're making their money. It's not on the person who's trying to do execute a career change. Instead, they're going straight to companies and having companies pay them.
Though I found out from my students that they have paywalled a lot of stuff that was formerly free to the public.
Well, then that makes sense. They were probably fishing for an acquisition.
Yep.
Code Academy, and they were trying to make their numbers look better.
Yeah, and that's only been over like the past year or so that they started doing that.
Mhm.
Well, in an interview, the now ex-CEO of Code Academy claimed that they had a number of potential suitors, which I think is a believable claim, given the valuation here.
Yeah.
There must be some money in it.
You know, it's turning out that these online teach yourself to code platforms are doing much better than the for-profit boot camps. Coding boot camps.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, yeah, they never had that great, strong a business model, and education, face-to-face education is never cheap. Lambda School has received something like $120 million in VC funding over the years, whereas Code Academy just got its Series D, and it was only $40 million. So it seems like, at least from an investment standpoint, these online coding platforms are far, far better investment than the face-to-face boot camps.
Well, I'm sure it's a lot cheaper to get rid of all those expensive teachers and just have software. Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. You need that teacher to just create the content once, and then that's it. You just start charging money and let the money roll in.
You know, I've heard of some other people with similar business models where it's not working out so well. Anyway. All right. Well. Yes. Well, I think I need to stop it there. I've got to go to another meeting.
Oh.
So I'm going to end it here, folks, and we'll be back on Tuesday. Farewell.
Have fun at your meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember,